Welcome to this week's Cattle Call on the Rural Radio Network. I'm Susan Littlefield. If you remember last week, we were talking about the cash, and there was a big hype and a big push. We were going to see some big movement midweek. Well, we know that the balloon got shot down out of that one, and we didn't see anything till after the close really to pick up. And that, according to Brad, has caused the momentum we saw on Monday. We're going to take a look at what's going on there. How about the average weights of these cattle? And then we'll talk about should this market really take a pause? We'll take a look at that and a whole lot more on today's program. As I mentioned, Brad Kooima joins me. He's with Kooima, and Varilek out of Sioux Center, Iowa. Let's start out talking about this cash, because last week there was such a big hype. We were going to have everything done by Thursday afternoon. Nothing was going to happen, and nothing happened really till after the close.
Like maybe 5 minutes after the close, in fact, Susan. I'm sure that was just a coincidence, right? Thanks for having me on, of course, like always. But yes, there was a very late trade last week. Now, it seems to us here that often when the later the trade gets, the better chances it's going to be higher. Because I think that shows you that the feedlot, that the producer's got a little more bow in his neck and a little more, willingness to turn down some of the bids. Dare I say leverage. Yes, it was, just shortly after the close when the first thing I heard was some 161 trade out of Kansas, and then that drifted into Texas. And then we even had a little bit of late trade at 161 up here in the Northwest, where I am in Northwest Iowa, too, later on Friday afternoon, which was, a couple higher at least. This week, we come into the week, I think I have similar expectations. I think we're going to be a little higher again. But on Wednesday, there's been, no real bids or offers so seriously been delivered yet. Now, the sale barn trade, which we watch, of course, because there's quite a few fat cattle anymore that get traded through a sale barn, particularly guys that are frustrated with the weather, where they want these cattle, they just want them dead. They want them gone. You go to a sale barn, somebody's going to buy them. And it's, it's where true price discovery exists, right? So there's been that, and I saw, Yankton, Tama today, watched it for a while. They sure are getting along pretty good there too. So I think, probably a late week trade, and I don't know. I'm thinking 162 on inside cattle for that I've got priced this week. We'll see if we get there. I guess my expectation would be that we'd have a really good chance we could.
Well, you talked about the weather. Has that caused any concerns, and is there any concerns when it comes to average weights of these cattle?
I think there's two, yes, to answer your question, and I'll speak a little bit from experience here. The closeouts, starting with that 50 below stuff, okay, just before Christmas, it seemed like the cattle held together okay for a little while through that stuff, but my own experience with the closeouts and our customers, very consistent. This last while, it is. Not only are the closeouts not any better, they might be the worst of the whole year in terms of rate of gain. Conversion has been a wreck, and obviously the overall health and the death loss is much higher than normal. So that's one side of that deal with the weather. The other thing is the weights. As I've impatiently waited for some proof in the USDA numbers that the weights were coming down, we have seen it in bunches the last couple of weeks, and I mean bunches. Okay, so the good comprehensive number, that's 13 days old when we get it. Everybody's heard me gripe about how stupid that is. We could get next day weights. Okay, we should. But anyway, so the one that's almost 2 weeks old, last Thursday, steer and heifer carcasses, 21 pounds less than a year ago, 21 carcass weight, not live weight.
Wow.
The USDA has many, many reports, most of them very, very interesting. The different comprehensive weights that come out like weekly, like they'll break down out of a negotiated trade by state, formula trade by state. I couldn't help but notice this morning's data for Colorado and Nebraska. I mean, Nebraska formula weights like over 70 pounds less than a year ago, 70. I mean, so yes, and you live there. I'm close enough to know, Nebraska has just been smoked by some bad weather here the last while. I think so. It's the weather and it's the incentive. It's go like cost of gains high. These cattle are not performing. They're standing still. Get rid of them. I want out. That sort of thing. And I think that's reflective in bigger marketings and less placements. And so that's been the story the last little bit because of the weather.
Part of the attribution to the higher numbers that we've seen at those local sale barns where they're selling 2,000-3,000 head a week.
For sure. The guys down south, when I talk about that, they talk about, selling fat cattle at a sale barn. Like, wow, what a novel idea. So we do it all the time. Yeah. In fact, I ran up a statistic for them. I think last year we averaged something like 17,000 a week for the either Iowa or the right around, the Lanesboro, the Yankton, South Dakota, the Tama, the et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So, yes. And particularly now when the producer brings them there and they know they're going to get sold and somebody's going to buy them. I mean, like I said, price discovery, where, okay, they're for sale and they're gone. Yeah. Which is an incentive too, for some of the guys to sell cattle that way.
So could or should this market take a pause right now?
It feels, and here is commodity broker talk, it
Right.
feels a little tired. We are a little overbought. We've, had a big rally without a setback of any sort, really. And from, if anybody listens to me regularly, you know that I've been friendly for a long time, and I still am. My bias is that way. But we are at big prices. I mean, April cattle up against 165. August cattle, for instance, did you know that the all-time life of any kind of August cattle, the all-time dead high in 2014 was 160 and a quarter. We're within $1 of that. Okay. So, I mean, it's not like we're cheap. We're at some nice prices. So, for the market to maybe rest here a little bit, maybe get a little bit of softening in some of the box beef trade for just a moment. And then I think pause for a next movement higher. To me, the supply for March, April looks really tight, tighter than now. So you're going to transition out of yearlings to calves. These big calves haven't done well because of the weather. The odds of getting those big calves ready by April are very, very small, in my opinion. So if that happens, then what happens is in April, you'll pull cattle out of May, and in May, you'll pull cattle out of June, and it's a great scenario. And that's what it looks to me like we're going to be doing here.
And last but not least, we've gotten past Valentine's Day. Just a quick reminder, markets are closed on Monday because of President's Day. But the next meat holiday for us, the big focus, as you and I were talking before this, is Mother's Day. So now's the time to start to ramping up for some good sales and get those grills going.
We're going into the best demand period of the year when you get close to that. We're without a doubt. If you talk to people in the meat business, that's the biggest beef feature of the whole year. And New York strips are the top of the pile. I always think that's kind of interesting for that. But yeah, warmer weather, Memorial Day, Father's Day, grilling season let off, of course, with Mother's Day. So maybe we got a little pause here for a few weeks, but I sure like the way the market feels to me, Susan.
Sounds good. We just need to blow the snow off of those grills and just go out and grill anyways.
Yeah, I grilled last night. So yeah, you don't even have to wait.
There we go. Thanks for joining us this week, Brad.
You got it.
And of course, Brad Kooima is joining us, and we remind folks commodity futures and options do involve a substantial risk of loss, not suitable to all investors. On a side note, when we're back next week, we're going to be at NCC The Classic. Who knows? There might be a heifer or two walking behind us during this program. That's been this week's Cattle Call on the Rural Radio Network.